Rise up, A-Town. It's the Falcons Squad. Sponsored by Gametime. Everything Atlanta Falcons every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the ATL. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Straight from the ATL, the Falcons Squad Show starts now.
Welcome into the Falcons Squad Show. I'm your host, Tenitra Batiste. Alongside me are Locked On Falcons host Aaron Freeman and Locked On analyst Jarvis Davis. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code Locked On NFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. And our squad show is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So we're not going to play games. We're not going to mince words. We're just going to get right into this 31-13 ugly way to finish the 2025 preseason. So Jarvis, Aaron, we're talking good, we're talking bad, we're talking ugly, and we're talking what's next. Let's just start with the good. However, Jarvis, what did you see? We'll start on offense. That was good tonight.
Yeah, for me, it has to be what Easton Stick and how he looked in the play action. I know, Aaron Freeman, he kind of, I had to say his full name, you know what I'm saying, so I can make sure you're paying attention. I understand that he wants more play action. We saw that tonight. He looked so comfortable. It gave the offensive lineman some time to kind of catch up with the defensive lineman because we know they were struggling just a little bit. But I like what I saw from Easton Stick in that play action game. He was able to take his time, find his wide receiver, sell the fake, and find that open wide receiver down the field. And guys like Nick Nash and Chris Blair were able to take advantage of that. So that's what you look for when in your backup quarterback. Like, I know that Kirk Cousins is the backup quarterback. I haven't forgot about Kirko. And that's that one mention for the show. So we good. We ain't got to mention for the rest of the show. We got that out the way. But if there's a situation where he's not on his team in the next couple weeks, I'll be very comfortable with Easton Stick being the backup quarterback.
And Jarvis, I think that's such a great point that you make because we see every day in the headlines for the NFL that players are going down. We haven't seen any starting QBs go down just yet, especially with contenders for teams free that Kirk Cousins would be okay going to. But because we get that injury report off the waiver wire, heck, the Falcons got hit with a tough one themselves with Kaleb McGary, which we'll talk about a little bit later. It is comfortable. And we know, we said it pre-show, we know Easton Stick is going to have an Easton Stick moment. But other than having his requisite Easton Stick moment, throwing into triple coverage, 20 of 28 for 198 yards and a touchdown and a pick, not a bad way to go in case you do have to enlist his services this season.
Yeah, those Easton Stick moments are why Easton Stick is a career number 3 quarterback and hasn't quite got elevated truly to be that number 2. Yeah. But I think Jarvis is right. Like in this scenario where we're imagining where at some point potentially Kirk Cousins, I'm sorry, I got to get that second mention in there so people understand the full context of what we're talking about. Kirk Cousins is no longer with the Atlanta Falcons. And Easton Stick is the QB2. And I think it's very clear that Easton Stick will be the QB3. It's just going to be a question of whether the Falcons feel it's necessary to carry him on the roster or do they think, hey, he's throwing a bunch of picks this preseason. No one's going to claim him off of waivers or anything like that. So maybe we can snatch him on the practice squad at least to start the season. Mm-hmm. But like in a world where Easton Stick is forced into a game in the future, Jarvis nailed it where it's just like, hey, let's just dial up the play action. Let's keep things simple. High-low reads, don't read, see that linebacker that's dropping underneath, the highly read. Don't throw that ball. But hey, the other, high-low reads with Drake London and Darnell Mooney hopefully at that point in the season rather than Nick Nash and Chris Blair, who did play very well in this game. But like you can see a version of the Falcons offense where Easton Stick can be functional with him with a high dose of play action. And as Jarvis said, we're hoping to see more of that with Michael Penix. But obviously in the dire emergency, if the Falcons are forced to turn to Easton Stick at some point this season, I do think he showed enough that he can kind of come in and manage the game if we can just avoid a couple of those brain farts from Easton Stick.
Yes.
Just turn around and hand it off to 7. That's it.
Exactly. Yep, because we will only be breaking glass in case of emergency when it comes to Easton Stick. But I think you guys called out another nice night that we've seen from Chris Blair and even from Nick Nash. Both of them had 6 receptions. Nick Nash for 87 yards, Chris Blair for 65 yards. So I think we also like what we saw in the receiving core. And we've seen that consistently, especially from Chris Blair, JD, throughout the course of the preseason.
Absolutely. And one thing that I really appreciate about Chris Blair, like he's an all-around player, right? He takes everything seriously. Yeah, the catch isn't cool, the yardage is cool, being able to adjust to the ball and tweak your body to be able to, make certain catches and all that stuff and be able to beat man-to-man coverage. That's all great. But I'm talking about he does little things that making sure you're getting downfield to block for his teammate after his teammate caught the ball. Like those are the type of things I feel that will get you consideration, over someone that might be on the 53 man. If they saying, okay, you know what, this guy right here who's right at the bottom rung of the 53, he's a solid player. He's done really well for us, but what are some of the intangibles that he does or brings to the table that's going to help us not only on offense but help us on special teams as well? Because it takes that type of thinking, that type of play to be able to do those ancillary things that are going to benefit the team, not necessarily the individual. So I think Chris Blair has done that on a consistent basis through this preseason, and I'm excited to see if he actually gets on this 53-man roster.
Yeah. I really wish he had hung on to that one ball to get the touchdown.
That would have been a touchdown, man. That would have been 6, man. That would have capped it off.
Had the hat trick this preseason, the touchdown in every game. It was like that was probably the moment I was most upset with watching this game, even though there was a lot of other upsetting moments watching this game. But like that was the one where it was like you had that opportunity to get the hat trick there. But I do think Jarvis is right. Like outside of that one play, I thought Blair played mostly well. I thought Nick Nash played his best game of the preseason as well. And so you're seeing these guys get these opportunities to shine in some of these preseason games. It'll be fascinating to see if the Falcons do not keep those guys on the roster and they have to put them through waivers. Will these guys clear waivers? And based off of how Nick Nash and Chris Blair have played so far this summer, it would not shock me at all if some team comes and scoops those guys up.
Yeah, and I think you guys make a great point. I know one of our audience members was like, oh, I didn't feel like Chris Blair had a good game. And sometimes you got to look past that one disconnect. Like, yeah, it was disappointing that they weren't able to convert for that touchdown. But when you're talking about 6 receptions and 9 targets, that's still a solid game. And more importantly, if we're talking about looking for those guys to do the little things, my mind goes back to how Olamide Zaccheaus, for example, built himself up. And even right now, a Kadero Hodge, like that's how you keep climbing the ladder if you want to stay on a roster, is doing those little things, because that's what the coaches are essentially looking for, especially in this 3rd preseason game. So let's talk a little bit about the defensive side of the ball. JD, Free, would you guys see that you liked?
For me, I got to go with what I saw from Bralen Trice. That man was this close to a sack. I was like, oh my gosh, he almost had it. And then he broke free on the very next play and took too many steps. And then you got that flag on him. I was just like, the hit was weak, but he had plenty of time to kind of just lay off the quarterback and not get that penalty. So, but yeah, I like what I saw from 48. I was kind of a little wary as to whether or not he was going to play because, they've been precautious this whole preseason when it comes to guys coming off injury. So I wasn't quite sure that he was going to play, but I was very excited when I saw him out there, and to see him kind of get after it, almost get home. He didn't quite finish it, but I love to see that type of stuff because I feel like Bralen Trice can be a guy that the Falcons can count on in that deep edge room rotation.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like we kind of know he's kind of at the bottom of the hierarchy when it comes to the guys that we know are going to be here. Because obviously you didn't get Jalen Walker, you didn't get James Pierce, you didn't get Arnold Ebiketie tonight in this game, and it's like for obvious reason. Obviously, Leonard Floyd hasn't played at all in the preseason, and so he's going to be behind those guys when it comes to the edge rusher rotation. But as Jarvis has commented on, he's showing that high motor that he was known for at Washington. Maybe the motor was a little too revved up on that one roughing the passer penalty. Just dial it back 98%, Bralen, and we'll avoid the penalty. But you're seeing him making plays against the run. You're seeing him getting some of this pressure stuff. And yeah, he's probably not going to be the signature guy this season in that edge room. But when he gets those opportunities, he's the type of player that I think the coaches are building that trust with, where it's like, okay, he's going to go out there and do his job. And that's kind of what we need from him this upcoming season, rather than being the sort of flashy, go out there and make a ton of the plays. I think the Falcons have other guys in mind for that type of role, but Bralen Trice, whether it's, 20 snaps a game or 30 snaps a game, go out there, do your job. And I think he consistently has shown up in these last 2 preseason games and able to do that.
Yeah, indeed. So last week we kind of went back and forth on and of course talking a little bit of special teams, but we went back and forth on, okay, has Koo won that job, or is that job still kind of open? Like, where are we? And tonight Koo was 2 or 3, but for you guys, what did you think about either Koo's performance? Of course, we'll talk about that, but anything that you saw from special teams that you liked?
Oh gosh, Josh Woods, man, give me more of that. I'm talking about lowering your hair, your pads, and just popping that man on the opposite team. That is the type of stuff I'm talking about right there. I'm sure Marquise Williams was just like, okay, coach, I know that we got, some linebackers, what I'm saying? We might be a little thin, but I might need to get 42 on my squad, please. Yes. I think there was some, that was one of those moments where I'm sure Woods was like, yep, I'm here, coach. I'm here. I can play special teams. I'm here. I want to be around. So yeah, that was the big moment for me, just to be able to watch a guy like that, a guy who's had a pretty good doggone preseason as well. Like, he's put together a nice picture, right? He painted a nice picture for this preseason. And I think that the coaches are going to have to take a look at Woods and say, all right, I don't know about you giving us snaps on our defensive side, but are you worth keeping for special teams? And I think that's kind of the conversation that's going to be had about him.
Yeah, Free. I feel like every week of preseason, we're talking about Josh Woods. We're saying good things about him, even throughout training camp. So yeah, I feel like he's a guy that's definitely made the case to make the 53.
Yeah, I think so. He's the veteran in that room. Like, even though Josh, he's been kind of that journeyman player that's bounced around the NFL for the better part of a decade, right? I think this is like his 8th season, and he's going and showing you, like, hey, I played linebacker in this league for 7+ years, and you're seeing that reflected on the field, especially when you compare it to some of the other linebackers that the Falcons have. They're very young and very inexperienced, and are still sort of growing into that role. And so I think Josh Woods has certainly made a very compelling case to be on this roster, and then Jarvis nailed it with this sort of special teams thing. As for Koo, when he missed that kick, I was like, I'm sure everybody's going to be very chill about Younghoe Koo missing a field goal.
Of course.
Forward. Yeah, and so the thing I'll say, as the resident Koo defender here on this postcast, him missing a 51-yarder, I'm not going to lose as much sleep as I would if he was a shorter kick, right? So like, I'm like, okay, 51 is not a gimme. So it is a concern because of all the other baggage that we have with Younghoe Koo.
Yeah, that's what it is, Free.
But
it's triggering.
Yes. And so it's like, but in isolation. And so again, it's just shortening the leash on Younghoe Koo at this stage in time. And so I'm just like, man, Raheem, why couldn't you just put Lenny Craig in this game so we didn't have to have this conversation? We could have avoided you refuse to play most of these players in the preseason, but somehow you were like, you know what? You know who needs to work? Younghoe Koo. And it's just like, we could have just easily avoided this situation if Lenny Craig had just gone out there and kicked field goals.
Yeah, that would have made life so much easier. But Jarvis, you didn't want it that way. You wanted to be able to have some commentary about Koo, didn't you?
I mean, Koo used to be pretty automatic from 50 plus.
Yes, he used to be.
I remember a time when Younghoe Koo was pretty automatic from 50 plus yards. You know, if you're telling me that I can't expect that this year, okay, I guess, you know, anything 50 and in, you automatic. You got to be automatic somewhere. I'm sorry.
Yeah. If you have a job in the NFL,
you got to be automatic somewhere in the NFL, baby. You know, you got his counterpart over there, you know, Aubrey, making 60, 70 yarders with 5 or 10 yards.
He's getting the misses out now, Jarvis. That's basically he's got to get this out of his
system.
Yeah, it's preseason.
We're rolling with that. We're rolling with Free's optimism about Easton Stick and Youngway, who is unmatched. So I'm gonna roll with it.
It's all I got. It's all I got. This is the only thing they give me in the preseason. They don't give me the good players playing. So I gotta find these, you know, the silver lining somewhere.
You gotta find a silver lining somewhere, because unfortunately for the rest of this show, we ain't finding no silver lining, good people. So I hope that you enjoyed the first 15 minutes where we tried to find one for you, but we're not doing that. And you'll figure out just how much we're not gonna do that when we run it back. This episode is brought to you by Betterhelp. These days, it feels like there's advice for everything: cold plunges, gratitude journals, screen detoxes. But how do you know what actually works for you? With so much information online about mental health and wellness, it can be overwhelming to figure out what's true and what will actually help. That's where talking to a licensed therapist through BetterHelp can make all the difference. You get real personalized guidance instead of just guessing based on something you saw on social. Now, I've found that therapy and coaching isn't just for navigating major challenges. It's also about building positive coping skills and learning how to set boundaries. With over 30,000 therapists, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, serving more than 5 million people, and it's easy to fit into your schedule. Just click to connect, and you can even switch therapists anytime if you need to. So talk it out with BetterHelp. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Talk it out with BetterHelp. All right, my guys, time to flip on to an area where Free likes to go into his dark corner. So I'm going to let Free go to his dark corner and talk about all the painful things, but not all. We're going to save the ugly Kaleb McGary situation, injury update. We'll save that for ugly in seg 3. So let's start with just the bad, Free. What was the bad on offense that really got under your skin tonight?
The running backs had their moments. I think that was all the running backs, though, because the offensive line continues to be unable to get any movement. And when they needed a yard, man, they could not get a yard to save their life. Like I think they had like a 3rd and 1 conversion, and like Jashawn Corbin like barely converted. It was barely. It was like by this much he converted that thing, and it was just like, this thing is going on. And you know, Javon Gwynn, shout out to Javon Gwynn. You know, he's done an incredible job over these last 3 years as a 7th round pick. You know, just taking money from the Atlanta Falcons, because my man has not shown any progress over these 3 years. And you know, Dwayne Ledford can't get him right, and it's just like, just tough. Like, you know, Jake Hansen gets in late in the game. He goes down with an injury. Javon Gwynn comes back in the game. And then is it a coincidence that the Falcons couldn't punch the ball in from like the 3-yard line on like 3 tries or whatever it was? And it's like, Javon Gwynn, this backup center position, because if he's one twisted ankle, one rolled up ankle away from replacing Ryan Nuzul, like it's going to be real rough this upcoming season. You know, already down Kaleb McGary. Like the Falcons got to do something at this backup center position.
Yeah.
You know, and so that to me is what really stood out once again. Though the second string offensive line continues to struggle.
Yeah, and you think about, like you said, down Kaleb McGary. We'll talk about that again, give you guys an injury update on him. Jarvis down Storm Norton. And it just starts to get a little bit scary. I mean, it makes sense because at first I'm sure we were thinking, okay, who is Raheem Morris going to play tonight? He chose not to play Elijah Wilkinson, chose to play Jack Nelson, Brandon Parker, taking the tackle reps, if you will. But you can understand, because as bad as it looked tonight, as bad as it's looked in the preseason with the second unit, I mean, Jarvis, can you imagine what little good you get out of the backups at each position if they went down?
Oh gosh, it would be absolutely awful. That's why I wasn't surprised that they decided not to play Elijah Wilkinson, because he's your only hope at this point. Because we've seen Jack Nelson play right tackle. Now, granted, he has looked like a 7th round draft pick, as Free has eloquently laid out in these Falcons Squad shows. But you move him to left tackle, and then you flip Brandon Parker over to the right side, and it looked like that was the first time that they ever have done that before. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, those guys were just getting beat.
Yeah.
Just beat, especially on the pass rush side. That's why I was surprised that Easton Stick was able to even make completions. That's why you saw a lot of the play action, because you had to slow that rush down somewhat, because they needed some help. Hit me, please, hit me.
Yeah.
Like that's what the play call was. Like that was. I heard Easton Stick say that in the huddle.
You heard him send help. You heard send help.
Hit me, please, hit me, please. So yeah, that was the thing that just really just stood out to me. I was like, it was Elijah Wilkinson, not playing, but the result of him not playing was flipping your young guys and having them just out there just free balling and supposedly free balling. Like they were just out there in the wind, and it was just going wherever, and they didn't know where it was going, and they didn't know how to keep somebody from going past them. They were just willy-nilly.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I don't know if you ever been willy-nilly before, but hey, it was willy-nilly.
Yeah. I don't really do willy-nilly very well. So for me, I can tell you that's a source of utter frustration and confusion, because I just don't understand how you do your job like that. But Curtis Case had I can't know. But Curtis Case, one of our audience members, said that he felt like the running back's vision was horrible. They kept running into the O-line. But for you, Free, and JD chime in too, did you feel like that was more of a bad on the part of the O-line, or more of a bad on the part of the running backs? Because we haven't talked about them just yet.
I thought it was more the O-line. I thought like when they were trying to run outside zone in this game, and the whole point of outside zone is everybody's got to, you got to get around the guy and seal the guy inside so the running back can get to his gap and then make his downhill cut. And it's like, ain't nobody getting around the guy. So he's just trying to get over there, and then the offensive lineman is getting pushed 3 yards in the backfield. So that's why he's running into the back of the guy. And then some of the in-between stuff, it's like when you're running in between the tackles, it's like you need that interior guys to get some push. That's the whole point. They got to get some push up the middle, and no push and whatnot. So I thought once late in the game, you saw some nice runs from Elijah Dotson when he was able to get in space. I thought Jashaun Corbin had a couple of nice runs. Nathan Carter didn't really do a whole lot in this game like he did last week against the Titans. So to me, and again, obviously I'll rewatch the film over the weekend, and maybe I'll revise the opinion. But watching it live, it just felt like there was really no room to run in this game.
Yeah. And then there was one time in the game where Jashaun Corbin got the ball. It was kind of like a semi-draw type play, and it was 3 defenders in his face when he got the football. I mean, I know there are some different type of schemes when it comes to NFL, but for the most part, when you're going from college to the NFL, the schemes are pretty much the same. The calls are different, but I don't know a call where it said, hey, man, let him go free and the running back go. And 3 guys say that, you know what I'm saying? Like you might let an edge defender go like, yep, we ain't worried about him. He's not going to make that play. Yeah, You can't say that for 3 different guys. And when you think about how, as a running back, how defeated you have to be, and when you see something like that, when you get the ball, it's deflating. And we just saw that too much tonight. I think that, we talk about guys like Kyle Hinton, Joshua Gray, those guys are. I say Joshua Gray, I give him a little grace because, he just got, he ain't been around that long. But guys like Kyle Hinton, he been here. Just like Jovan Gwynn, you've been here. You've been under some of this good teaching. You've been getting some of this good teaching, and it ain't absorbing. You're not receiving it. You're not ingesting it and regurgitating it. On the field, it's not working because, like Free mentioned, like towards the end of the game when Elijah Dawson will start breaking off some of those runs, Gwynn wasn't in there. That was Jake Hansen. Jake Hansen was sticking to that second level on that linebacker, getting his hands on him, whoop, moving the feet, got them hands inside, running back, getting on up there. That's what you want in your center, being able to get up to that next level. But because and you helping out your guard as you trying to make sure he got his man, he get around like Free mentioned, he gets around on that outside shoulder. Hey man, I'm going on to the next level. I'm trying to get it. So I think that's one of the things that you have to like really pay attention to when you're looking and evaluating these offensive linemen. And I think that some of these guys, the interior guys on this second offensive line, they just haven't cut it. They haven't cut it.
And shifting gears to the defensive side of the ball, would you guys? I know I don't even want to say would you guys see that you didn't like Free. JD, I'm just gonna let you guys kind of roll with what you saw on the D-line. Well, not the D-line, excuse me, the defense overall.
I went into this game being like Joe Milton's gonna carve up this defense. And for the first two drives, he was carving up this defense. And I was just like, oh God, this is gonna be another like 45-10, like blowout or whatever. And fortunately, the defense in the second quarter got a couple of stops. And salvaged it, but boy, those first two possessions, like Dallas was just marching down the field. Just hey, you guys gonna stop us? Nope, not gonna do a darn thing. And so, the cornerback battle was something I was gonna keep an eye on in this game. And it was an up and down day for some of these guys, like Kobe Bryant getting a little too.
That's where
getting a little too handsy with some folks, and like that was his game at Kansas. He was a physical wide receiver, a physical corner that loved to mix it up with wide receivers. You can get away with that in college because the rules for like illegal contact and DPI are not the same in the NFL. NFL, you breathe on the wide receiver wrong, they are going to throw the flag. And that's one of the reasons why I was not necessarily hyping up Kobe Bryant to the degree that a lot of people were going into this summer of like, oh, this guy's going to definitely come in and ball out. He's had his moments, but like those issues, Alford, they put him outside in this game. And it was very clear like, oh, you haven't tried this in 3 years with Alford playing outside. And there's a reason why you haven't done that. There was a fade ball early in the game where Alford, it took him about 12 seconds after the ball had been, incomplete, out of bounds. The ref has already taken it back to the huddle to respot at the line of scrimmage. And then Alford's looking back for the ball. And it's like, this is a tough look for you, my guy. And if I'm going to say anything positive, I'm like, hey, CJ Henderson, for a guy that's only been on the team for a week, hey, he looked like he belonged. So I'll give him that. I don't recall too many instances of Natron Brooks getting exposed or anything like that in this game, but it was a rough night for the secondary. It was a rough night for the run defense. It was a rough night for the defense overall.
Yeah, and Jarvis, I gotta agree with Free on that one. Just going back to something you said a minute ago, it's like, okay, Alford, how many seasons are you going to be with this defense? Whether it switches coordinators, switches DB coaches, but Jerry Gray's been here for a couple of seasons now. At what point do you stop letting, to Free's point as well, letting the play be 10, 12 seconds ahead of you before you figure out where the play, where the ball, where everything is?
Yeah, that's a tough one because, coming into this game and we didn't see Billy Bowman.
No.
At all. So that should tell you all you need to know. And we didn't see anyone that's been in the conversation for that starting safety position opposite Jesse Bates at all. As a matter of fact, we saw Lamar Jackson at safety. oh my gosh, he has to know that he's not going to make this team. And I'm not making fun of that. I'm just saying, like,
just an observation.
It's an observation. Like, he was at corner, he struggled at corner. He at safety, he struggled. He looked like Brandon Parker now. That's what he looked like. He was like, whoa, wait a minute, what's this now, coach? You want me to do what now? Play 8 to 10 off the ball? And, okay, all right, we'll figure it out, I guess. But yeah, it was that group was that safety group was not great. It was something to watch, right? Because especially like you say, when you don't have any guys that are competing to be for reps on the starting rotation, I just say that it just didn't quite fit. Like, you had D offer on the outside, like Free mentioned. You had Natron Brooks working on the outside, but he was fine. It wasn't great, but it was fine. That's pretty much what all you ask for, because I understand what he brings to the table. So I think that this secondary needs some work. And can I talk about a play that just bothered me?
Yes.
Can I just let it loose a little bit? JD Bertrand, sir.
Somehow I knew Free that's where he was going. I knew in my spirit. I knew it.
Vaughn runs through. You got a free lick on the goal line at the 1. And he just runs through you like you're not even there. Like, that's the guy that I don't feel like we talk about enough. I mean, mid-round pick, okay, whatever. But I never saw it. I never saw what they saw in him. Like, James Pierce Jr., yeah, I understand that. But, he got some stuff he need to work on.
Yeah.
I get what y'all see in him. I get that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Jalen Walker, yeah, I know exactly what y'all see in him. Bralen Trice, 3rd-round pick. I understand what y'all see in him. You get some work in, coming off the injury, all that stuff. But JD Bertrand, I don't see it. Somebody help me. Help me. I'm like Easton Stick. Help me, please. Please help me. Help me to understand what it is that you saw in this guy, because I have not seen it yet.
Yeah.
I saw it in Troy Anderson. We got a taste of it with Troy. I get it. I see why y'all drafted him. But it's unfortunate that he wasn't consistent enough to even be on the field so we can see it more. But JD Bertrand, it's not lining up. And it came to fruition tonight. Like, that man is smaller. You don't care how much you squat on Kenna. That man ran through you like you weren't there.
Yeah.
And got an end zone.
Yeah. Yeah. Very troubling. Free, did you want to wrap us on that one?
It was a rough night for JD Bertrand Hive. It was a rough night for a lot of Hives. A lot of supporters of various individuals on this Falcons defense. And I've tried to see the vision of JD. Because I saw some good things from him last year that I was like, some of the mistakes that he made last year as a rookie, I'm like, that's a rookie mistake. He's still figuring out, the wheels are still turning.
Sure.
Let's see what he can do in year 2. Let's see that jump. And it has not been a great jump. It's been like a little hop, and then he trips and falls down. That's what it's been like this preseason. So it has not been great for JD Bertrand. And that year 2 jump, you need to see it, because if you don't see it, you're probably not lasting in the NFL. And again, I'm sorry to the family of Jovan Gwynn for all the slander that I'm giving him on tonight's episode, but he did not show a jump last year, and the Falcons were like, well, we'll still keep him around. He'll be back. And it's like, no. If you don't make that jump in year 2, there are examples where guys don't make the jump in year 2 and then make it in year 3, but it's few and far between. It's few and far between. And so,
Oh, bless his little heart. It's giving poor little Tink, but sorry to this man. But we're going to go into the ugly. We talked the good, we've talked the bad, and now we've got to do the unfortunate, which is talk the ugly. And of course, we like to have fun on this show, but this was a little tough for us. This was a little tough because this is a serious issue that obviously different positions, but we've been talking about this before. At some points in the preseason, you got to deal with an injury at a serious place, and this couldn't come at a tougher time for the Falcons. So we'll definitely talk about one of those injuries, and based on what we've seen throughout this training camp, throughout this offseason, how do the Falcons manage through it when we come back? This episode of our Falcons Squad Show is brought to you by Yahoo Fantasy. It's the best time of the year. NFL kickoff is almost here, and that means fantasy football season is back in full swing. And this year, Yahoo Fantasy is turning things up with a fantasy football experience like never before. So this year, the Falcons Squad Show just might play a little fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first timer or a veteran making your millionth league in Yahoo Fantasy. I know I've used Yahoo Fantasy for years, and the updates they're rolling out this month are wild in the absolute best way. So to celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout August. Now to kick it off, they just dropped Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues, a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, whether the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's one team left standing. With the season around the corner, now's the time to get your league together and give this new mode a try. If you're more into the classics, well, you can still play in head-to-head private leagues or join a public league. So stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. Again, that's yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. So, gentlemen, we got the news that we kind of knew was coming, but we were hoping maybe for a better outcome. But Raheem Morris confirmed tonight that Kaleb McGary is indeed expected to miss significant time due to his injury. Mentioned IR designation that could be coming. We know we only got 2 weeks to the regular season. Tough game coming out of the gates against Tampa Bay at home. So, Jarvis, Aaron, we've been talking for weeks during the preseason, during joint practices, etc., about how unsettling the play is at the backup position across just about the entirety of the O-line. So this is a tough one for the Falcons to be dealing with Kaleb McGary, and Kaleb McGary having this type of injury come at such a tough time. So I think that's kind of where we start. For me, that's the ugly. That's the ugly, because to lose Kaleb McGary for an unspecified period of time at this juncture due to that leg injury, I mean, first of all, let's talk about Kaleb McGary before we even go into where do they go from here. Jarvis, what's the biggest thing? Aaron, what's the biggest thing for you guys that this team misses in losing Kaleb McGary for, as he mentioned, an unspecified period of time?
I mean, Chris Lisham lost his partner. My partner in crime. Like, that's that, hey, it's 3rd and 1. We run to the right, and we don't care if y'all know. I mean, that's what it is. Do something about it. And that's the unfortunate part, because we've been spoiled a little bit when it comes to those guys, right? They've been fairly healthy. Now, Kaleb McGary has had his issues in the past, sure. But when you think about just overall, he's been pretty consistent, when when it comes to being on the field and being out there with 63. So I think that he has been criticized sometimes a little harshly, and I can admit that I was part of that crew too. I was leading the charge on that. But when you talk about what he brings to the running game, like just the old school physical, I just want to line up and just mash you. I know it's an outside stone scheme, but there's ways to mash. There's the ways to look for some work, like I always talked about. When it comes to those type of offensive linemen that you want to have on your team, he's that type of guy, and his teammates understand that. It's not just me saying that. It's not just Free saying that. It's not just UT saying that. Like, the guys that play with him on the field saying, "Hey, man, that dude gets after it. He's one of those dudes when it comes to being on the field. I know he's a little awkward sometimes. He's from the sticks in Washington State, but hey, that's what you get from a guy like that. And I think that, for him to get the nice, bump in salary, get an extension and all that stuff, and he's just like, man, like, that's the part that just really sucks about it.
Yeah.
You're just like, man, this was something that you were counting on. This was a group that you were counting on to be there, right? Because you were probably expecting some injuries to come from somewhere else, on the defensive side of the football, or in the wide receiver group or the tight end group, that type of thing. Because those guys have been there. We're spoiled by Jake Matthews.
Oh, no question.
We're so spoiled. Bergeron has been super healthy since he's been coming to the league, and you're expecting him to take a jump as well. And, you got Ryan Newsom stepping into the fold, who was a solid backup for you, came in and started 8 games for you. And to the tune of Drew Dahlman, they paying you how much? Okay. All right, cool. We'll see you. All right. Bring in the lefty. Give me the lefty, baby. You know what I'm saying? Like, and everything was supposed to keep rolling. But when you have this type of injury, and then, given how Raheem Morris spoke on it after the game and said he's probably a candidate for IR, that ain't good. That ain't good at all.
Yeah. What I'll add is, on that note, this is what Raheem said about DeMarco Hellams last year. He's going to miss significant time, and DeMarco Hellams didn't come back at any point during the season. So at this point, I'm just going to assume that Kaleb McGary's out for the year. Now, hopefully at some point we'll get an update and we'll hear some good news on that. But I'm just going to assume for the time being, based off of past rhetoric from Raheem, when a guy is going to miss significant time, that he's done for the year. So the reason, as Jarvis said, it's about the run game, right? We focus on Kaleb McGary's limitations as a pass protector. He's come a long way from where he started out there, but he's never going to win any beauty contest when it comes to his pass protection. The thing that he does best is his run blocking, and the Falcons already were going into this season with questions about their run blocking, because we spent the entire offseason talking about, is Ryan Newsom going to be as good as Drew Dahlman was in that area of the game, right? And so we still don't know, right? We're still optimistic. We're hopeful. By all accounts, Newsom's had a great camp, and everybody's sitting here singing his praises, about how great he is at pickleball and how, newsflash and all this stuff. And so like we're sitting here optimistic. I'm like, hey, I'm firmly on Team Newsom at this stage, because I gotta be. He's got to step up. Bergeron's got to step up. We know what Jake brings to the table. He's kind of the opposite of Kaleb McGary, where very good pass protector, not necessarily always going to bring it when it comes to the run game. And so you kind of need, hey, Jake, we kind of need you to kind of step it up, because as Jarvis said, it's like when they needed to get a yard, it's like, well, we know where the ball's going, right? And they were able to get a yard. And now you're probably not going to have that with Elijah Wilkinson or Storm Norton or whoever the Falcons bring into the building with that combination. Not to mention the trickle-down effect it has in pass protection. Now, we can sit here and say, okay, we're going to put chip help on that side of the ball and give Elijah Wilkinson as much help as humanly possible. But, defenses can be like, okay, well, we'll just drop that guy in the coverage and we'll bring pressure from the opposite side, and there's ways to scheme around that. And so it's not just an automatic solution where it's going to be a non-factor because we'll just chip on that side. It'll help. Don't get me wrong. It'll help. And then the other thing that, was underrated about Kaleb McGary and Chris Lindstrom, that combination, was stunts weren't really a problem for those guys because of all the work that they had put together over these last, 7 years, that communication. Now that's going to be probably an issue with Elijah Wilkinson or whoever steps in next to Chris Lindstrom. So there's going to be a lot of different ways that defenses are going to try to attack this offensive line to exploit some weaknesses now that Kaleb McGary's out. And then there's already question marks elsewhere where it's like, are we going to have this sort of pop in the run game? So, I'm not trying to be doom and gloom or whatever, but it is one of those things where, this offensive line where before, 4 days ago, we were like, man, this thing is going to roll and we're going to be fine. And now it's like, there's all types of turmoil and it's so many questions now. And how do the Falcons deal with it? And again, this is just how football is. It's a game of adversity. It's your ability to respond to adversity on a, ain't nothing more adverse a situation than, some 300-pound human being trying to rip your head off. So like, well, I'm sure there are more adverse situations, but, as far as we're concerned, that is as adverse as it gets. So it's one of those things where your success and failure is really about how do you adapt to these issues, because
absolutely.
Raheem can sit here and say, I'm going to mitigate injuries, but injuries are going to happen. And so you're going to have to adapt to that. And now the Falcons are forced to adapt to that. And there's going to be a lot of challenges that they're going to have to overcome now with Kaleb McGary out of lineup.
Yeah. And Jarvis, when you look at it, and of course, something for us to think about, and I'm sure we'll hear more about it in the next couple of days, but do you feel like the better way for this Falcons team to go is to look in-house with the roster? And when I say it's currently constructed, just meaning who's on this current roster, obviously ahead of the 53-man cut, or do you feel like, hey, there's really nobody available to be even in the ballpark of what Kaleb McGary does, so they're going to have to go outside?
I think, and Aaron and I talked about this on Locked On Falcons, and I think that, he brought up a good point. I feel like we came to the conclusion that if it's significant time, like we're talking about out for the season, get on the phone. And Elijah Wilkinson's right now, that's your immediate answer.
Sure.
But if you're talking about him being out for a significant amount of time, the season, that's when you have to make the phone call and at least see what's out there. Because if you're going to get Storm Norton back in 4 to 6, 6 to 8, and Elijah Wilkinson goes out there and just stinks it up, like that's those pre-phone calls that you make right now are probably going to turn into some hey big head Texas, like, hey man, I got an offer for you. We need a little help, at Easton Stick, saying like they help me please. We need a little help me please over down here on that right side of the offensive line. So I think that right now Elijah Wilkinson is the answer.
Yeah.
Right. And then as we get more information, get the confirmation as to whether or not Kaleb is going to be out for the season, I feel like you start making those phone calls now, because if I'm them, I'm not comfortable with Elijah Wilkinson at 17 games right now. Now, he may surprise me. He may go out there and be fine. But right now, in my mind, visualizing where this team wants to go and what the foundation of this offense is going to be, which is to run the football and play off of that with the play action with the doggone water hose of a gun that Michael Penix has. Like, they ain't gonna be falling for that play action if you're averaging 2.5 a carry.
So true.
I can tell you that much.
Yeah.
Those linebackers gonna be just like this, waiting. They ain't gonna come up not 1 inch if you're not running the football successfully. So I think that the Terry Fontenot's in a space where, get on the phone, you have an answer. So that's good. That's roster building, right? That's roster construction. So kudos to you. You have an immediate answer, but I would start making those phone calls right now.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Like you got 2 weeks to the regular season. It's Elijah Wilkinson's the next man up, right? Yeah. But you need to make a phone call. You need to pick up somebody so that I feel like you probably go into the season being like, okay, Elijah, you got 2 weeks to hopefully impress us. Because if we get a guy now, that we will have a month to get that guy up to speed, and if that gets up to speed, we can pivot off of that guy after maybe like 2 games. And then if that guy is solid for the next 2+ games, then when Storm Norton comes back, then okay, we're in a good spot, right? Yep. If that guy's not capable of upgrading that spot, well, hey, Storm, we need you. We need you. Come on back. So I think that's the strategy the Falcons are going to have to employ. You got to get another guy in the room. Elijah Wilkinson's your short-term option for the next 2 to 4 weeks. Maybe the new guy is the option beyond that, and then Storm Norton, and you just kind of hope, hey, we'll just throw something at the wall, and something's got to stick at some point, But I think that's the plan.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, guys, we know that it's closing in on that time where 53-man roster, what are we, 4 days away from it? Tuesday, August 26th?
Yes.
All right. When we return on the other side, we're going to just give our instant reaction from what we saw in preseason game 3 that tells us, hey, we think this guy has finally made a case to stay with this team. And we think this guy, hey, it's been real, but time to, I'm just going to use the second word, not the first word that Jarvis uses, blank cut. On the other side. All right, Jarvis, Raheem Morris and Terry Fontenot have some tough decisions coming their way early next week. They've got to cut this roster down to 53 men in preparation for the start of the regular season. When you look at preseason game 3, or look at preseason overall, training camp, joint practices, everything that's been encompassed these last, say, 4 to 5 weeks, who for you has made the case for himself in terms of maybe that person being on the bubble or that player being in a position battle? Who's made the case to say, hey, I think you won?
I will circle back and I'll go with Chris Blair. That's my pick. He's a guy that, like I said, he's done all the little things. He's giving you the production from a wide receiver standpoint. He's giving you the feel and vibe that he's willing to do whatever he needs to do in order to be on this team. And he's been around, like I think about Natron Brooks and how I feel like he's a solid guy to pick for that 53-man roster. And he's had to go through some cuts. He's had to, be on the practice squad and then get brought up last year. Those are some of the things that I feel like Chris Blair has gone through and experienced, right? We've seen him progress since he's been here with the Atlanta Falcons. So I think he's a guy that has made a serious case to say, hey, guys, I've been here. I've been consistent. I've been, I've done whatever you asked me to do. So I feel like I've done enough this year to make a good case to be on this roster.
How about you, Free? Who for you has stood out and really, really put forth their best effort and said, hey, I'm making a case to make this roster?
Yeah, Jarvis stole my guy and Chris Blair. I feel like I've been leading that bandwagon these last couple of weeks. But, I think he's really done an outstanding job. Again, -1 drop that would have gotten him the hat trick for the touchdown this preseason. He's been a guy that has shined. But, it is notable to me that he played, like 3.5 quarters tonight. And I don't recall seeing David Sills out there tonight. And so that kind of tells you, like, that was one of those things that we went into the game, like, who are these quote unquote bubble players that aren't going to play tonight? And that will kind of tell you that, again, you never know with Raheem, because for all we know, that these guys could be hurt and he'll never tell us. But,
that part.
It does seem like, based off of what David Sills and all the hype that's been surrounding him in training camp and some of the flashes we've seen in the preseason game, that it does feel like the team likes him a little bit more than Chris Blair. But I feel like Chris Blair, as we've discussed time and time again, with his speed, with his blocking ability, with his special teams ability, like, I want to get him and Michael Penix together, and let's let that big time arm, and let's see. We've seen these go balls for Chris Blair throughout the preseason, and just adding more speed to the mix, to me, just makes more sense. So Blair's the one guy that's really stood out to me this summer.
Yeah. And on the flip side, Jarvis, some guys just ain't gonna make the cut. Like, you had your shots, man, and you just didn't take advantage of it. Who is a guy like that for you, or guys?
Morgan Fox. I think that he is shot. Like, for him to be a veteran in this league, to still be in the game, like Free mentioned, like, pay attention to the people who are in the game late. Like, he's playing a special team. I know D'Angelo Malone was in there, but I feel like he's going to make it, from a special team standpoint. So he's one of those guys. But, like, Morgan Fox was in that game, and when
was that bad, Ken?
I go back to when he was in, like, when he was signed, and you thought that he was going to be one of those guys to kind of just be one of those anchors for you, and I think that he's one of those people that he just didn't show that, hey, I'm the veteran, I should make this squad. And because you had guys like Brandon Doyle just all the right, just have an outstanding camp, right? He just showed that, yep, I can be exactly what you guys want me to be. You gave me a vision for what my role is going to be in this defense. Yep, I'm going to execute that. You saw Zach Harrison saying, yeah, not only can be a big nickel end for you on early downs, I can also step in that interior as well. So that's another interior defensive lineman for you. Ruka Rororo, David Onyemata. Like, you just got so many guys that are going to need reps and have earned reps. And I just feel like Morgan Fox has not done that. And I think that the display was on tonight when he was in that game late.
Yeah, I echo the same thing that Jarvis. Morgan Fox was the guy that came to mind. I know we're just two like-minded individuals,
He's in the pod tonight.
We're just like we're checking out of this game, and it's like, okay, well, Morgan Fox, we're going to talk about him. We're going to talk about this guy because there ain't nobody else to talk about in this game. But it is notable to me, like, because he was kind of the guy when they signed him in March. I was like, okay, this is the Grady Jarrett replacement. Like, he's not Grady Jarrett, but he's the guy that when you look at his performance as a pass rusher in the past, he's probably the guy based off of, the down year that David Onyemata is coming off of, the most proven interior pass rusher that you had on this roster. And to sort of see him on the back end of the roster and still getting those snaps late in the fourth quarter, Kentavious Street's out the game, Rook's out the game, Zach Harrison's out the game, Brandon Dorlus, I don't think he's suited up in this game. So it's kind of telling you that, I went into the summer being like, is David Onyemata safe? Because we spent the whole winter.
Yes,
like,
season.
Yes. David Onyemata, like, he's an obvious cut. Like, there's no, they're not going to bring back David Onyemata after the season he had. And then they bring back David Onyemata. And then, I went into the summer being like, okay, well, maybe they'll cut David Onyemata because they'll get a bunch of cap space and maybe they'll need to maneuver some things. But then, they make some roster moves. And so that's probably not on the table. And then you're like, okay, well, if there's going to be a quote unquote surprise cut for a guy that we were counting on to make this roster, it does feel like Morgan Fox is the prime candidate at that spot. And then I'm still very interested to see how the cornerback room shakes out. Another guy that was in there late in the game was Mike Ford, and the Falcons signed him with the idea of like, oh, he's going to be the other gunner on the punt team opposite Kadero Hodge. And then we get to see Billy Bowman out here, making plays. And I'm like, and then we're watching Mike Ford and, again,
missing tackles.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Mike Ford, and to your family, but I've never been a fan of Mike Ford. I feel like he's like the worst cornerback in the NFL based off of what he is over the years. And I'm just
tired.
And I'm just like, you have made it, this many years in the NFL.
Grim Reaper tonight.
You are.
Told you, dark corner after that first segment.
They forced me to watch this game, so I'm
exactly.
Yeah. So,
Jarvis made us watch it, Aaron. Everybody knows Jarvis made us watch this game. So, I mean, yeah.
I am contractually obligated. Like, I'm going to give David Locke a call. I'm like, can we sit out these third preseason games just for the Falcons show? Just for the Falcons show.
Just for the right.
Just
don't make anybody else obsolete. But we, however, deserve a pass.
I'll give some back of my paycheck just so I don't have to watch some of these third preseason games.
Man. Agreed. Yeah, because I felt like there was a vibe free going on in the city of Atlanta that I was missing out on for the sake of this foolishness. And this is us every season. Like, it just, it's so frustrating. But before we wrap up, guys, on a serious note, just real quick, Jarvis, Aaron, give me, you guys, person that might be on the bubble where you can't really tell it right now. It's like a 50-50. You wouldn't be surprised if they make the roster. You wouldn't be surprised if they didn't.
Wow. Whew, goodness. Think about that one. I think for me, if D Alford could be that guy, because if you have Natron Brooks working inside, Natron Brooks has been playing well wherever they put him. He can play special teams.
Yep.
He's been an all-star for you. And D Alford playing outside, we know that's not an option. And then more than likely, Billy Bowman is probably going to be the starter. So let's put the guy that can be versatile in every space for us and be a solid person for us. So I think D Alford might be that guy that could be one of those surprise cuts. I know some people are like, D Alford, get rid of him. But it just way the numbers work out, the way guys have been taking advantage of the opportunities that they've been given. Clark Phillips he got a rib. That's all I know. He just got a rib. And then Natron Brooks come in, he just starts balling. He gets the interception. He's always been solid for you on special teams. He's been working outside, inside, and have been serviceable in both roles. Mm-hmm. So that has more value to me than a guy that can only play in the nickel. And you can't, and it's not an option for you to put him on the outside. So I think D. Offer might be that guy for me.
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting move when they re-signed him back in April. I was a little surprised because I still didn't think he'd shown anything necessarily that was worthy of that. And here we are. Free, real quick, who's your person where, hey, it could be 50-50. You wouldn't be surprised if he made the roster, but also wouldn't be surprised if he got cut.
I'm very curious about this running back room because I feel like you got flashes from all these guys, and I think you can make a case for any one of these guys. And then meanwhile, Carlos Washington, who was the front runner going into training camp, has not been there because he's been hurt. And so I'll take it from, I don't know if there's one guy that I'll say, okay, this guy's on the bubble, but I feel like this run, we were going to focus so much on what the offensive tackle help that the Falcons are going to bring in, but I feel like the Falcons might be looking for a third running back that can, maybe come in and solidify that spot just because, again, no fault to the running backs in this room, but they just didn't get the opportunities to impress this summer. And so I do wonder if the Falcons might be shopping for a third running back too.
Yeah, because you just feel like Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier gave it to you. Got a little something here and there from Nathan Carter, but maybe just not quite enough to seal the deal to say, hey, in relief for either one of these guys, he would be that third back for this team. We shall see. We'll know more on Tuesday, and really we'll know more probably across the course of the weekend. And certainly you guys can join us Monday for the Squad Show, and we'll react to that. But thanks to our everydayers for making the Falcons Squad Show tonight your first listen of the day. Next up, head over to Locked On Falcons, where our guy Aaron Freeman does more of a deep dive into tonight's game. We will see you next time.